All right, let's see. I should probably position well, I can change the camera, I guess, but
Yeah.
like the background
Get
right
comfortable.
off. Is that probably a good idea?
Actually, looks kind of nice.
We'll leave it.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. And all right, we're live right now. So let's
Yep,
see.
we are because I see myself a second ago getting up and getting back down. It's a
Yeah,
delay.
there's a little bit of a delay there. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny.
So I
So
see
we'll
myself.
just
It's like stargazing.
yeah, exactly. So usually with these things, we'll kind of maybe like wait a minute or so just to see if people will show up. But luckily with these, they go right to our YouTube page afterwards. So people can come by and
Yeah.
check it out after the fact. So I'll link all of this back to our Twitter after we're done. But yeah, why don't we just hop right into it then? First off, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Sure.
Really appreciate it. We always
I
love
haven't
doing
seen you since I think the last time I saw you was at a GMT West warehouse thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the
like
last
two
time I
years
saw you.
ago.
Right, we played something. I don't remember what we played.
It was
but-
We
Versailles.
played Versailles
Oh,
before it was out.
right. It had been
So
published.
much.
In fact, that's funny. Jeff Engelstein was just calling me, and I told him I'd call him back later. But
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun time. We're hanging out with the
It was the
Jeans-
Versailles
Jeans-
prototype.
Rachel,
Yeah.
Rachel Billingsley play also,
Rachel and Luke.
and
They-
Luke, right?
They,
And
they both
you
hopped
guys
on.
played, and I refed the thing, right?
Yeah,
right,
you
right.
refed it. I gotta say, it was you as a designer, are also a very good instructor. You can lead tutorials very well, very easy. So it's I felt like with that kind of a game, if I played it on my own, I'd be confused. But with you there, kind of guiding us through, it was fun and it made sense. It was a great time.
Good. Yeah, it's done very well. It's done very well, I think, and I guess it got nominated for an award. Whether it will, we'll find out. I guess on a couple of Saturdays whether it won or not. I suspect not.
Sure.
But it doesn't matter. It was a good effort, and now we're working on Triumvirate. So, what do you want to talk about with Fort Sumter? Or we're waiting for humans to show up still?
Well, yeah. So just as just kind of an open up question, how has everything been for you with COVID? Have you been able to kind of stay sane, play games, I know you said you've been playing chess a lot recently, but
Well, I've always played chess, but
Yeah.
well, remember, with maybe not be now. I am on the board of governors of the Marshall Chess Club, but I'm also the president of the actual building. So I put a lot of time into the Marshall Chess Club. I pretty much I don't run the club, but I run the building that the club is in, and
Right.
so which means I sort of like keep everything. I'm always fixing something. It's an 1841 old building. It was built in 1841, so
wow.
I just got a picture from my building manager. There was a leak, and like the pipe is like there's like no pipe there anymore. You wrote it out to nothing. I mean, I was like, all right, great. So what do you want me to do? I said, well, fix the damn thing. We're not going to leave the steam pipe and the water pipe with not there. So
Yeah.
it is just. But it's fun running a building in New York sometimes, and sometimes it's just like luckily it's not my money, it's not my building, so I'm just doing what I have to do. But
Yeah.
it's still like takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I bought the club new chess sets. Everybody's very, very happy. We spent a ton of money on the building. They couldn't care less. I buy them some chess sets. Man, I am a hero.
Yeah. They gotta have the new stuff. That's awesome.
That's all they see is the chess sets, right? They don't see the fact that the building looks good. I don't care. It didn't fall on my head.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So and I guess mostly what I did during COVID, I finished Pacific War, which is in the printer in China. That was never doing that again. That game, that was a throwback game from the mid '80s, like when everything's in there, and it just took and trying to go back 35 years and figure out what my younger self had done was like a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. That guy was both smarter than me and a lot more energetic than I am, but we got it. We wrestled it to the ground, and so we're in good shape now, and that's done.
Good.
That's what I did during COVID. Of course, I got vaccinated. In fact, today I was eligible for, and I actually showed up at two different places to get a booster shot. Because Moderna now is like allowed for old people, and they couldn't give me. Though they gave me an appointment, they go, we didn't get the guidance yet. We're not really sure how to mix this stuff. I said, okay, well, come back. So I'm going back on Tuesday with my wife to go get my booster shot, but they're still trying to figure out because it's like a half shot, like it's not like a full shot, so they have to they don't have the guidance, and
Different
So
regulations, yeah.
the website was ahead of the supply chain. And I
It
wasted about
happens.
an hour and a half this morning running around New York trying to get a booster shot, which
Yeah.
nobody can do yet. So
Yeah.
we'll do it Tuesday.
Well, you're staying busy, so that's
Yeah.
important.
Oh, yeah, I'm staying busy. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of Civil War games. In fact, although I'm not working on Fort Sumter, I'm working on a game called Rebel Fury, which is like I did a game called Gettysburg. Remember, I did this one for C3I. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. But anyway, I use that system. I'm now going to do all the battles of the Civil War with it, and it's already past its P500. It's like 1,000, not quite, but it's close to 1,000 pre-sold already. So just
excellent.
Cranking on that. We're halfway. I'm like 80% done. I actually got finished art on the maps, and now we got to finish the game, and I got work to do there, and
yeah,
plenty of things to do.
So that's a newer project you were able to do.
What's that, buddy?
So that's a newer project you've been able to work on during COVID, or?
Oh yeah, I was working on it during COVID. Yeah, in fact, what the big hiccup was, an old friend, a guy named Rick Barber, was doing the map research and all the map work for me, and he mails me the last 2 maps of the game, and I had some questions. I found out he passed away like right after he got to the post office. So that was sad. I had a massive heart attack. Yeah. I knew him forever. So that kind of put a little bit of a crinkle in the project, but certainly more of a crinkle to him than to me. So, but still it was sad. But I'm probably one of the last people to talk to him. We talked on Thursday, and I think he passed away before Saturday, and after he was dead, the map showed up. I said, well, I didn't realize he had nailed him. So that was nice of him.
Wow.
to mail me his map. So, but it was sad. But
yeah,
anyway,
that's unfortunate.
So we'll make a proper, tribute and all that in the actual final product to him. But you get old enough, everybody dies.
Yeah, it's life. Yeah. So, besides from those games, have you been kind of brainstorming anything else? Any new game concepts?
12 games. I always have 12 games going. I'm working on Triumvirate with Jeff Engelstein, which is like a Versailles follow-on. I'm working on a Roman Civil War, which is a card-driven game follow-on to something that Mark Simonich, he did a goal game, and we decided to do we kind of agreed on. He had a system kind of cooked, which was pretty close to what I was going to do. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll follow the system. I have to substitute on all this other stuff for the Roman Civil War, but it'll be like a companion game to the one. So it'll have enough of the, similarities. If you played Gaul, you'll be able to play this one, although we don't have barbarian rebellions. We have like recruiting legions, but beyond that, there's enough similarity, and we'll use the same kind of components, big cards and all that stuff. Yeah. So I got all the cards basically done, and I got a map, and so I'm starting to work on that. But Rebel Fury is really taking up most of my. When a game gets to this point, I got to sort of focus on finishing it, so I can get it off the table. So right now, Rebel Fury is, and I'm still researching a whole bunch of other games, but I want to get Rebel Fury nailed down and out of here. So, but making me read a lot of books about the American Civil War is not painful. So that's good news. Yeah, I'm a good time.
You're having fun in the process, which is
always good. Always
important.
always.
Yeah, that should be the case. Well, it's very cool because Fort Sumter has now been on the digital platform for about 2 years, a little over with some months, which is incredibly exciting. This is a really unique.
How many people have played a game online or anything like that?
Plenty of people have played some games. I don't have the numbers on hand right now, but it's definitely a good moving game. People are playing it and having a great time. It's nice because it's very approachable. It's an accessible game that.
What was the intent?
Exactly. So with this in mind, the idea of making kind of a this kind of with the Fort Sumter mechanics. Have you thought about potentially creating future games with the same mechanics and feel?
Well, it's funny you should say that. So I did and I actually have a game that I'm in that milieu that I'm working on the Peloponnesian War, like in that short, fast playing. It'll be called The Peace of Nicias. But that there's what is it called? It's about the Paris Commune. Is already Fred Serval, nice guy. He's got his own YouTube channel, but he designed one about the Paris Commune using the Fort Sumter system. So that, and Luke Billingsley was the developer, And
Right.
right now in the P500 is one during the Munich crisis, following the same. So that'll be the second and third games of the series are being done, have been done by other people.
Okay, very cool.
So they're very, like I said, they, as always, like they use the basic mechanics, but then they go their own way because it's a different situation. So what Fred did is fantastic. It's handles the Paris Commune is the 1871 during the Franco-Prussian War. The Paris is surrounded by the Prussians, and basically, the play, and then there's a rebellion of the left rebels, and and it ends up with a treaty at Versailles, believe it or not, of all things. It creates the Germany is created out of this, but the Paris Commune is the siege of Paris, pretty much, and what goes on within Paris politically at that time. So it's a fascinating period that nobody's ever touched before, and I guess the Fort Sumter system gave Fred the idea how he could do it. Finally, that's what he said in his own interview.
Right.
And this the Munich crisis. So these small like moments in time, like the Fort Sumter crisis was like a build up to the bombardment of Fort Sumter, which is the final crisis mechanic. Here it's the how the Paris Commune, which is a left revolt that gets put down, is resolved, and then of course the Munich crisis is in 1938, where Chamberlain sells out Czechoslovakia that he helped, that the Versailles Treaty created. So he sells them out to Hitler in 38.
Wow.
That's the Munich crisis.
Mm.
That's the famous, peace in our time, which of course it wasn't. With less than a year later, he's declaring war on Germany. So because of the invasion of Poland. So these are all sort of these big moments. And so that this kind of format seems to work for that. It worked for one crisis, why not another, right? So
Sure.
maybe doing sequels, who knows?
Yeah. So so his game is Red Flag Over Paris.
That's it.
Okay.
I know I had
Cool.
the word red in it. I just couldn't remember the exact title. Yeah, and I know that it's finished because Fred got a what they call a designer proof. So you get a copy of the game and you get to look at it and say, "Oh my God," and you made a mistake, or it's good to go, right? So he's already got the designer proof. I saw online, so that one's well along, and the other one is still the P500.
Okay.
And I'm just sort of tooling around with my Piece of Nikias game, which is in 424 BC. The Peloponnesian War was really a series of wars, and there was an armistice between Athens and Sparta, which is covered in Pericles' game. But the reality is that it was only a peace between Athens and Sparta. All the other allies were still fighting with each other. Athens was fighting with Thebes. They were fighting with, other various upstarts. So it was not a peaceful period. And in fact, the largest battle of the Peloponnesian War, which is the Battle of Mantinea, it takes place in 418, where Athens is involved on one side and Sparta's on the other. So, the peace is sort of like but anyway, so the game is about one side trying to screw up the peace and one side trying to maintain the peace. That's the basic crisis. Okay. And ultimately, the Athenians decide to go after Syracuse in the famous Sicilian expedition, and that ultimately, leads to an invasion. That ends the peace. But the game you'll sort of wrestle with these issues and see how it comes out.
Okay. Very cool. So
I know I knew you knew all about that, but I thought I'd just kind of give you a little. As I always tell people,
soaking it all in.
The reality is, I'm actually a historian who designs games. That's my real jam is ancient and American history.
Right. You're an encyclopedia.
When you're a historian, what you realize is a great deal about a little. In other words, I could go chapter and verse of the Peloponnesian War and a lot of Roman history up to the Republic. Excuse me. And I can go on and on about the wars of America. But there's a lot of other history out there, like China and India and, Russia. Right. So, like I said, I know a lot about a tiny piece of history, but puts me ahead of most people. But I know a little bit about a lot of other stuff. But that's how it is when you're a historian. You don't get to know it all.
Interesting. Do you enjoy making the more smaller scale games like Fort Sumter over some of these big ones? Or
I wrote when I was doing this Pacific War game, which is like a Magnum. I mean, you're literally fighting at the operational level all of the war in the Pacific. So it's got every single ship, like, and every plane and every guy, and playing and it's meant to be played like sort of like campaigns like that take place over a couple of months. But you can play the whole war. Of course, everyone wants to play the whole war, but that takes like over 100 to 200 hours. I mean, it wasn't meant to do that, but it's in there, and so the research and the testing of that is beyond belief painfully. As I said, it's not a game I would design now. That was a game I designed in 1985. I was 30. What the hell was I? I was 31. I was 31 when I did that game. That was, and I'm 67 in a couple of days. So, that's a long time ago.
Right.
That guy, he had a lot more energy than this guy did. So
you still got a lot of energy now, which is great.
You should have seen me at 31. I was like
unstoppable.
My daughter, who has my granddaughter, was like 2. So it was a whole. My life was in a different place then. So
Sure.
the redoing that game was something I realized I would never design that game now. So going back to your question, do I like smaller games? I think I kind of waffle and wane. I like doing games of sort of that are meaty, that are meaningful games. So the size is not really the issue, but I also am more conscious of being able to finish it like in 2 or 3 hours. So a lot of my games, they might be bigger games if you want to play out the big campaign, but there's like when you play Pericles is a good example. There are almost, was it 25 scenarios in that thing. Some of them you can play. Well, some of the practice ones are playable in 10 minutes. So that's not what I'm talking about, but a 1 or 2 turn game is going to take you like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Everybody, one of the things I find interesting with board games now, computer games are cool in that once you kind of figure out the interface, you can just play, whether you play badly or well. The other day I played a game I like called Root by Cole Worley, and they have a electronic version of it. And I finally played a whole game. I got it, and I finally had time the other day. I wasn't doing much. I said, let me just play one game of it. And I fumbled around with the interface a little bit. You know how it is the first time you play a game. Like, how do I discard a card, and how do you designate something? And you have to get used to how to push the buttons. And I came in second. I lost to the game, but I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I liked what they had done with it. But the main point is that I like board games, but I like the computer games. I got nothing, nobody around. So when I'm doing a lot of these games, I'm looking for a game where I could sit down with somebody in 90 minutes and be done with it, or 2 hours. And a lot of people say Euro games, war games are complex, they take too long. The answer is 2 hours is 2 hours. I don't care, unless you're doing some Einstein thing going on with the time-space continuum. A 2-hour war game takes as long as a 2-hour Euro game. And I got to tell you, I've played some Euro games lately with friends. They take a heck of a lot longer than 2 hours. I mean, I don't like to name game. I never like to dump on games. But there's a couple of very well-known. They were big Kickstarter games. People love them. They're rated like 1, 2, and 3 on BGG. And I've played them. And 1, I'm mostly underwhelmed. And 2, they take like 4 hours. I mean, that's 4 or 5 hours sometimes. I'm going like, what the hell is that? Yeah. And it's not even that. And it's not interesting enough for me. After I played one of these games for 4 or 5 hours, I said, I ain't doing that again, because it was a good game in there somewhere, but it wasn't worth 4 hours of a good game. It was a good game in 90 minutes maybe, but not for 4 hours. It wasn't enough meat. It was just the same thing over and over again, it seemed, after a while. So I find that some of those longer Euro games, they just don't have the juice for the back end of the game to be worth that second, third hour.
A lot of people don't have attention spans that long either.
Well, yeah, that's an age thing. I mean, I can sit for, 5, when I'm typing, I can sit for 8 hours straight and type. So that's just the entertainment that I grew up on is different.
Sure.
But back tonight, the big thing is I'm watching Dune. I have people coming over to my house with my family. We're going to watch Dune tonight. Yeah.
Oh,
opening night.
It's on HBO. HBO has it. It's streaming it on HBO.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I might have to go sign up for like a free trial tonight.
And a new thing that's going on in New York is you could So we're renting an entire movie theater to watch the Bond movie. So a bunch of us threw in. It's $230 to rent the entire theater, which is nothing. You know, you get 10 people. That's what it costs for a normal ticket anyway.
Yeah.
So we got the whole theater on Monday at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, we're gonna watch the Bond movie. We rented out the whole theater.
Yeah.
And the 10 of us are going. We're all vaccinated. We know each other, so we're all just gonna go in, lock the doors, and watch Bond, and then get the hell out of there.
That's incredible. I wish they would have that here. I would love to.
They do have that here.
We can do that. Okay, we got enough.
You if you had enough people and you wanted to go see a movie with you could always do what they call like a private party thing anyway. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you had a birthday party, you know, for your kid, you could rent out a venue. Now, usually you get in the afternoon when they don't have a lot of people showing up anyway. It's not like the prime time evening shows, but who cares?
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
At this point, yeah, just go and have fun.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, you'll need some some good attention spans to watch Dune. That's going to be an intense film, but
I read that when I was remember I read it when I was a kid.
Right.
Frank Herbert wrote it, I guess, in around 1965 or so.
Yeah.
I read it like when I was like in junior high school, middle like seventh or eighth grade. I read it. It was actually like new when I read it.
Right. Pretty groundbreaking for the time too.
Yeah, you got to talk about attention span. So the thing with Dune, so I'm like, I've been rereading a lot of old science fiction. I see it very differently as an adult than as when I read it when I was a kid. And when I remember reading Dune, like for the first 100 pages of the book that's this thick, I had no clue what was going on. And all of a sudden, like on page 101, it all snapped together. I went, wow, this is cool. And then I kept going, obviously. But you got to be able to get that book. You have to get through the first 100 pages. If you don't know what's going on, you got to read 100 pages before any of it. Because a lot of science fiction, they're setting up the universe. So like you got to they're setting up this whole social structure and where the planets are and what the technology is and who the characters are. And so you're getting that in pieces, and it takes a while in any good science fiction story to kind of pick up like what's the structure of this place that I'm looking at. And so that's the big thing with Dune is it just takes a while to kind of go like, there's melange, what is that about? And Gam Jabors, and there's obviously some kind of feudal society going on here. What's going on with that? And I sort of put it all together. And then all of a sudden, about 100 or so pages into the book, you start to go, okay, I think I know I think I basically understand what's going on here. And then then it really gets amazing.
Yeah. Would you ever consider doing a science fiction type game? I know GMT has like Space Core, as a game, but has that ever been a kind of a fun thing for you?
So is it here? I don't think I have it here. So you ever hear of John Carter of Mars?
I don't believe so.
A movie recently.
Okay.
Right. So so there's a guy named Edgar Rice Burroughs, and if you don't remember who he is, he wrote the Tarzan series. You heard of Tarzan, right?
Oh yeah. Classic.
So Edgar Rice Burroughs did Tarzan, and what a lot of people don't know is he also wrote another series called John Carter of Mars, and it's about this guy in he's like a Civil War guy, swordsman kind of guy, and he walks into some cave, and all of a sudden he's on Mars, and of course now he's on Mars, and because he's and Earth has got a higher gravity than Mars does. And there's this whole society, and there's a hot girl named Deja Thoris out there. And so he's able to like jump like super, like he could jump. It's not like he's Superman, but he could jump pretty far. Like he can, because it's his muscle structure is set up for a different place, and there are Martians, and there's kind of like these normal looking Caucasian people, and then there's like these very exotic multi-limb green guys it's called Barsoom and all this. Anyway, I did a game on that back in 1980. It's earlier than that. I did the game in 1978. I did the game.
Okay.
And it was a licensed product, and I did it. So if you look out there, you can find people kind of like it still.
Excellent.
It's kind of a cool. I think I did a cool design. It's a long, long time ago. So I would do. There's a whole raft of Dune games just came out, so they're obviously licensing the crap out of it. And
right.
But I would love to do a science fiction game. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to make up my own. I don't mind doing a science fiction game like I do a history game, like I did with John Carter. There was a whole all the characters are written, the whole universe exists, and I can do a game on it. If I have to first write up a science fiction that somebody would think was okay, which would be pretty interesting if I could do that, and then on top of that do a game, that's a lot. I have to go first write a science fiction series. Now, when John Butterfield, just speaking, you said Space Corp.
Yeah.
If you look in the front, apparently his brother-in-law had a series of science fiction books. So Space Corp is based on his brother-in-law's space, science fiction books. So he already had some kind of, basic structure for Space Corp.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really the big deal. So when you do a historical game, I don't have to make up history. It already exists, right?
You're right. Exactly.
I'm a historian. I know a lot about it, but I've also been a huge fan of science fiction. Right now I'm watching on Apple TV has Foundation, well, they call it Foundation, but it was the Foundation trilogy, which I'm almost done rereading, by the way. I even met Isaac Asimov once and talked to him.
Very cool. So yeah, you have this nice balance between history and then you get your science fiction. So, we just need to get some people to write some good books and then have you make a game out of it.
Or somebody come to me and say, hey, we got this known property. I also did a Conan game that never got published. I have a copy of it, but it was tied up in the fall of SPI. So I also did a Conan game once.
Oh, very cool.
Oh yeah, I read all of Conan. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, just to be clear, Conan is really 3 books by the original. Was it Robert E. Howard? I think it is.
Okay.
And then this guy L. Sprague de Camp wrote the other, bazillion books of it. But the original Conan, the really good one to read is like Red Nails or one of those. It's like the original stuff is just spectacular.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. I mean, so you've got your hands in many different genres of games, especially within the historical front too. I mean, you've been able to do games like Empire of the Sun and Fire in the Lake, which are big, meaty games like we've talked about. But the cool part is with games like Fort Sumter is there's still meat to it. You can just do it in 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Well, the way you limit that, so just from a design perspective, all I did was what is it? You get 9 cards. Isn't that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so in your hand, I think it's 4 strategy.
Right, but you had to put one away for the crisis.
Yeah.
And 3 are played, right?
Right.
So you're going to play 9 cards. So it's like 9, and I mean, I just thought of this now, so it wasn't how I designed it, but it's like 9 innings of a game. You're going to play 9 innings of a baseball game, and then there's overtime.
Yep. Right.
Describe it. So every time you play a card, it's the first inning, who scored, second inning, third inning, and you end up with the overtime crisis to see how it all turns out.
Yeah. So in this case, I mean, I know we mentioned Red Flag Over Paris as another game that another designer had come up with using your mechanics, but how else have other designers been able to take your kind of style system and mechanics of Fort Sumter and implement it?
The game system. I mean, there's I think there must be 50 games that are card-driven games out there now. From the original The People, and it's become a common mechanic in a lot of Euro games. People have done, they've given it different terms. Like Dominion did like a deck construction game, which was kind of cool. I thought that was a very interesting take on it. Then I think somebody did a game they called it a deck destruction game, but all that was when a deck gets played, it gets removed. So I think that was just branding. That wasn't anything special. Yeah. But that's a card where the cards drive all the action is a very common thing in Euro games. Now, I don't know that they pulled that from We the People, but those games all came after We the People, so who knows? The famous Richard Garfield, right?
Yes.
So I once played. I met Richard at a convention once, and I think it was Origins actually early on. And he really he said he liked We the People. We were talking, and then he asked me if I wanted to play a game of Magic. So I played a game of Magic with Richard Garfield once. He's a very interesting, nice guy. I mean, I haven't seen him since, but he was a very interesting, nice guy, very smart, and we had a good conversation about games and cards and how you use them and all that stuff. So that was an interesting moment in my life.
Excellent. You said you played Magic? Is that what you just said?
No, in fact, wait a minute. The big thing is I haven't played in a long time, but Hang on. This is like a show and tell. I just bought
Very
a board
nice.
set, right? So I've got a friend of mine, is his kids are huge Magic players, and he is, and all that. So this is a booster draft on Sunday.
Very cool.
Got a whole bunch of kids.
Exciting.
When I say kids, are like young teenagers and the father and some friends. So I bought the brick, and we're gonna have a booster draft on Sunday. I haven't played Magic in, at least 15 years. My son was big into it when he was a kid.
Yeah.
My daughter played some.
Yeah.
I used to play a little bit, but I wasn't very good at it.
Yeah, it's a game, I mean, I played chess. It's funny. I saw Gary Kasparov, who was world champion for a long time on chess, and he was on. I guess he was on Morning Joe, and he was talking about. I guess he has a new master class or something out on chess, and he was promoting it and talking about democracy and all this stuff, and Joe goes, the beauty of chess is whether you win or lose. Well, and Kasparov goes, no, it's just whether you win. That's why he's a chess. Yes, right. I've actually met him. Funny story. So Magnus Carlsen was born the same day as my son. So he's going to be 31 on November 30th. And he's the current world champion. He's Norwegian. And I've met him. I've worked with him a little bit, helping him with some electronic stuff for chess, like a chess tournament in New York. And he was at an event with Gary Kasparov, and they played like a team game. Like Magnus, I have a friend named Doug, who was on one team, and it was Gary Kasparov and this other chess master on the other side. And they're playing, and the way you play the game is like I would make a move, then you make a move, then my partner makes a move, and then his partner makes a move, that kind of back and forth thing. It's not meant to be a serious game, but it was during a tournament. I got their signatures on the card. But what happens is Kasparov is really a serious player, and his teammate makes a move, and he goes, "What are you doing? That's a terrible move." Hell out of him, and I'm like, wow, that's intense, baby.
Very intense.
So
you get into it.
It's about winning. It's all about winning. You don't play chess if you don't want to win. Other than the beauty of it by yourself. But if you play a game of chess, there is no purpose to chess other than to win.
It's competition. I've only played a handful of times, and it's challenging for sure, but it's when you're in it, it's very competitive, and you gotta win.
It's a spectacular game. I've learned I've taught myself over the years. I play all the classic games, but chess is the one I keep coming back to. I play Go and Shogi and all that, but nobody else around here knows how to play those games. So only people know how to play chess. And obviously at the Marshall Chess Club, not hard to find people to play chess with, by the way. Not a problem whatsoever.
Good.
So do you picture the current state of the Fort Sumter mechanics? Do you picture that getting any more popular than it already is right now in the future?
If I do what makes something popular, I would have a lot more money than I have now. So I have no clue. What strikes people's fancy in 1985 is different than what strikes people fancy in 2015 and 2025, and who knows? I just design games that I want to play, and I won't publish them until I really want to play them. And I like playing them. And then once they're out there, it's up to other people whether, one of the things I found is somebody said there's a reviewer named Dan Thoreau, Thurot, really good reviewer, and a guy who I've played games with during the COVID. We were part of a group with these, Uli Blenneman from Vainlag, and we were like playing Zoom games for a while, and still are when we can get everybody, getting 6 people together on Zoom between Germany and Denver is not that simple. But we had about 4 or 5 games we played. And Dan said, they asked him, I guess it was in an interview for something else. And they said, what do you think about me? And I was like, oh, this could be good. And he just said that often my designs are ahead of the time. And I think that's probably true for me. Look at Empire of the Sun. I came out in Empire of the Sun in 2005. People, bunch of people, basically took defecated on it online. And now it's the number 9th rated war game because people also going, wow. And when you tell people it was done back in 2005, they're like, what? And now it's the 9th most popular war game on BGG. Not that I think the BGG ratings are definitive, but they did its rating has gone up by over like an entire point from like a
Wow.
7.2 and 8.2 over 50, well, I guess it's 17 years now. Then you look at For the People. When For the People came out, people defecated on it, and you know it's still going on 22, 23 years later, going to its fifth printing. I did a whole bunch of games, like even when I did France 1944, people look at that game and go, oh, when did you do this game? Oh, we did this one back in 1983 or so. And they're like, this game was advanced for today, but I did it back in 83. So I design what I want to design, and I am rarely in sync with the public, like almost never in sync with the public, actually.
Right.
And so when We the People came out, they burned me in effigy across the land.
Yeah.
And now card-driven games are like normal. So
right.
what did I tell you? So if you want to say like, do I have a clue what makes anything popular? I have no clue. Never have. I design what I want to design, and somehow but the stuff I design seems legs. So,
well, what it seems like is you're almost ahead of the time, and then the people have to catch up, and they realize, oh wait, that was excellent. That was a genius move. And then
I don't know what the actual dynamic is. I do the game, and I keep playing it. I don't publish games I don't want to play. So I'm still playing it, and a group of people tend to form around the game. And I think over time, the fact that there's a group of people playing it over and it gets reprinted and all that, eventually people go, what's going on here? And they kind of fall in and go, oh, now I see what's going on. And so it's almost like you walk into the desert and you get a following is more what my games are like. I get a tribe of 5 or 6 guys follow me into the desert, and eventually, there's more people, but it's still, even on the, the scale of some of these Kickstarter games, it's still, it's small potatoes, but they still keep getting reprinted, keep getting played, and that's all I care about,
Yeah, and people enjoy them. Yeah, I love it.
Hi to my wife. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Carol. So, back in the day, I was going back and watching an older interview or a Q&A that we did with you about a year ago, and you mentioned that you started out with SPI. You were doing I know reception stuff, and you were also play testing. So during that time at SPI, when did it occur to you that making your own games and being your own creative could actually be a reality, and you could actually put your own games out there for people to play?
Well, just to be clear, the deal that I cut, so they needed a receptionist, and my only negotiation was, it just so happened that the receptionist was part of the R&D department because she sold games. Okay. So you had to know the games. So my deal was I would take the job, but that I had to be allowed to go to the weekly R&D meeting as a member of the R&D staff.
Okay, excellent.
That was the only deal I cut. I mean, the money, minimum wage at $2.50 an hour. I was starving. But that was the only thing I got. So I worked on the front desk, I answered the phones, and I sold games over the desk, which was, like I said, if I saw 25 people in a week, that would have been a busy week, unless we got near Christmas. If you get leading out Christmas, which I was even on the desk during Christmas, but other than Christmas or some weird moment, the desk never had more than 25 people a week, and it could have been less. And most of those were on Friday night when all the people showed up to play test. So most of the action on the front desk was on Friday night anyway.
Okay.
But during the week, I might see 2 people in a day until I got to Friday.
Okay.
So I had plenty of time, and so I started doing projects. So that was what I wanted. And what happened at SPI was they had a magazine called Strategy and Tactics, which is still being published by Decision Games. And every issue, usually 6 issues a year, comes out with a game in it. And at SPI, we were publishing about 36,000 of those, I think, at the height of it. We were using, you've seen like in the movies, like the big web presses that newspapers get printed on. You see the newspapers being printed like really fast.
Absolutely.
That's called, in those days, they called them a web press. And we had a scheduled time on a web press every 2 months to print out the magazine. And by pre-booking it, we got the best price you could get. But if we were late, we paid all these penalty charges. We couldn't afford not to be on time. So what happened was, this is the age of the beginning of the monster game age. A monster game being multi-maps, thousands of pieces, very dense rules, like Pacific War. And there was this guy, a good friend of mine still, Jay Nelson, was doing a game called Highway to the Right, which is a market garden game, big one. And Jay fell horribly behind schedule on this market garden game, which meant that his magazine games also fell behind. and they cannot fall behind. And
Mm.
so because I was coming to the weekly R&D meetings, I mean, I was known quantity of some sort. The head of R&D, Irad Hardy, comes to me and goes, okay, Jay's way behind schedule. You're doing October War in issue number 61. Okay. So that's how I got my first game, is that Jay couldn't do it. And I had to get it. And I had a very short window to get it done in.
Right.
So that was my first design. And I was really technically the developer, but it was a redesign. Irad was great, and we did the game together, and that got published. And then like a week later, Dunnigan comes up to me. He was the head of the company, and he goes, hey, Modern Battles Quad 2 is coming. It has been feedback, and we're going to do it. You're going to do you're going to do Jerusalem 67. I said, okay. So now I'm doing my second. So I also had I got there on September 1st. This is like the third week in September already. So I've only been there a few weeks.
Right.
I now got 2 game designs. By October 1st, I was off the desk and I was working in an office designing games. So when you said, did I know I wanted to design games? I went there with the intention of designing games. And I, obviously the break came at the right time. But the thing that I did do in my first month there is SPI had a contract to the U.S. Army for $25,000 to do a game called Firefight, which was supposed to show all this cool, individual tanks shooting long range and how you set up the battlefield as a training thing. And we got to publish it as a game. So when I got there, they had just delivered the contract, and there was 7 feet tall worth of Army manual. Every single manual in the U.S. Army was in the library. We had a library. And they were stacked in the corner. And I'm 6'1". They were taller than me. I think it was about 7 feet of manuals. I had nothing much to do. Remember, the phone didn't ring all the time. There was hardly anybody coming to buy games. So I read every manual in the U.S. Army in the month of September of 1976.
Oh my
gosh! I read everything. I could technically fire an RPG-7 if I was given one. I could operate a minigun. I could throw a grenade. I also read, I could be a brigade commander, a division commander, and everything in between. I read every single manual of the U.S. Army. So if I have a skill is that I love to read, and I can read and absorb a lot of stuff fast. And so anytime I've ever been given a problem in business or whatever, I was at Booz Allen years and years later, they said, we had this problem in class, they said it was something about analytics, new analytics. I didn't know what the hell that meant, because you change math, Right. And I said, I said, what do you want to, how are you going to handle it? I said, I need 3 days. And so for 3 days, I went on the internet, I read everything. And I turned around, I said, we're not doing whatever the hell you said. We're going to be doing cloud analytics. So I was doing cloud analytics before it was even a thing.
Wow.
And I built the whole business around that. So again, if you can sit down and anytime anybody gives me a problem, if I have I say I need 3 days. And in 3 days, I will read, 2,000 pages on the topic. And by the way, when you read 2,000 pages on anything, you're not the world's expert, but you're way ahead of most people.
Right.
Real fast.
Yeah. Makes you a good asset. But that's interesting though. So it was more in the sense that you were kind of like, you had the desire to create these games, but you got the opportunity, and they were kind of putting it on your plate. Like, here you go. You got to do this. Okay. This is on your plate now. Make it happen.
And then of course, the fact that I was able to accomplish the task, I actually published a game.
Right.
That's, and once you can publish 3 or 4 games, you start to figure out how to publish games. And I did it the old school. We were going to press it. There was no word process. I mean, I used a typewriter. Right? Luckily, my mother was a secretary, I guess, before she was married. And when I was in high school, she insisted that I take typing. It was I wasn't. And it was a good class to take, because that's where all the pretty girls in the school were in the typing class, by the way, if you didn't know. I was like the only guy in the class. And what you wouldn't know is my pinky at one time, I could drive it through a steel beam, because when you're on a manual typewriter, you have to hit the semicolon, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in a manual typewriter, the way you scored the way you got a grade was 1, accuracy, right? You had to type whatever you were typing, but you got points off if the amount of ink on the page wasn't even. So if you hit the semicolon, it was just barely, like you hit it lightly, there wouldn't be a lot of ink there. So you'd lose points for that. So my pinkies used to be able to, I could smack it. There was no, and then when they invented electric typewriters, like, oh my God. So SPI had electric typewriters. So my pinky is no longer the strength it was when I was in high school. But I knew how to type, and I can type very fast, by the way. And you guys call it keyboarding, right? But we used to call it typing.
Yeah.
Best class I ever took, by the way. That and public speaking. Made my whole life.
They're important.
How much from your time at SPI till present day, then how much would you say your game designing skills have evolved? Have you gotten better or worse? Or
So I'd like to think, well, first, my skills definitely evolved, but now a lot of people tell you that they got worse or they were never any good to begin with. So yeah, I don't know.
You got the upper hand.
Skills are what they, I don't measure my skills by what other people think of them. I'm very proficient at designing and publishing a game. I mean, I've done it 70 times now. So yeah, I've delivered 70 babies, if you want to call it that way. So I'm very proficient at it. Now, whether I'm even good at it, who knows? But I'm happy. You're talking to me, so somebody's publishing and wanting to talk to me. So I can't disaster. But no, you can't judge. As a historian, you can't write your own obituary.
Yeah.
And of course, once you're dead, you don't care. So whatever they write about me afterwards, I don't care. But I am having a good time publishing games. Like we got to do a little product thing.
There you go. Like Fort Sumter. Please go buy it.
I mean, you're still able to live off this, so you must be doing something right.
Well, the good news is the only time I've ever lived off of being a game designer was when I was in a game company getting a salary. Now, I will say that all the years when I was working and I was getting these royalty checks, I put them in. So I was able to send one kid to college on my royalties, but I couldn't have lived on it. But in the aggregate, if you take every royalty check and you put it in a bank account for your kid, and there's compound interest daily and all that good stuff. By the time they, if you do it from the time they're 1 year old, and they, at 18, 17 years later, if you did, it adds up. So that's really what. So my daughter went to college on my royalties. After that, it's fun money,
Yeah.
With that guy you might have seen walking around before, he's a painter. He just finished painting a house, and GMT paid the last, paid for the paint job.
Excellent. Excellent. So just one last question, because we're about to wrap up here. But when you are creating games and you're designing games, do you ever like to work like in designing with other people? Like do you more like to kind of like create your ideas on your own and then take that to publishing, or do you like to kind of work with other people and take your ideas and bounce them off other designers and you kind of collaborate together? I know you kind of did that at least with Fire in the Lake, I believe, right? You did that with Volko.
And no, I guess there have been there's some projects I do with other, like I did my good friend who's passed away, Richard Berg, and I did a whole series of ancient games called The Great Battles of History together. And I don't think we ever did anything else together. I mean, I met him first at SPI, so we did I helped him on a couple of designs there, which I always tell him the reason the game stinks is because I helped you, but all that stuff. We did a bunch of games together, and then I did Fire in the Lake with Volko, and it was Volko's coin system. I was doing I was more the historical, bringing the history in the sort of the Vietnam piece of it in there. Then there was, and I'm working with Jeff Engelson. We did Versailles together, but Churchill. But I find that my big breakthrough kind of designs have all been when I've been alone, talking to myself, which is like talking to the village idiot. But it's work seems to work out.
Yeah. I mean, with us, we're on the musicians and media creatives, and it's like when you get by yourself, you're in your own room, you're in your own head. That's when oftentimes that breakthrough idea comes out. I know Xander, being a songwriter, you've gotten plenty of great ideas when you've just sitting alone and it comes to you.
Yeah. So I definitely I like both, but I find that right now there's such a backlog of printing and ships and supply chains. I have to say that I've gone more into some newer designs that I think will take longer, because I think that if I finish a game and I throw it into the art department, I won't see it out for a long period of time right now. So it's like,
Sure.
I don't want to I hate doing the hurry up and wait thing.
Yeah.
So I'll probably have,
Yeah.
by the time everything clears through, I'll probably have a bunch of stuff ready to go. But I'm not worried. And again, I don't measure my output by, I didn't do 28 games this week or something like that. I just
Right.
ambling along.
Well, at least we know that, once this kind of is all said and done, we've got a lot to look forward from Mark Herman. A lot of cool ideas, a lot of cool games.
I hope so. Well,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Playdeck gets excited about doing a version of Fire in the Lake. I know you guys did Labyrinth.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll get around to Fire in the Lake. Who knows? Maybe even Empire of the Sun someday if you guys are really. I did a great solitaire system, so you got the one thing you did with the solitaire system. So
Right.
knows?
Well, wait, we love everything you do. So, if we can do all of it, we will.
We'll see we'll see how long we got together. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, Mark, we really appreciate you came and sat down with us. For those who tuned in, thanks. And we'll have this up afterwards on YouTube. Make sure you go get Fort Sumter, play it around. You can get it physical with GMT, or get it on online with Steam, Google, and Apple to play on the mobile front. But thank you, Mark. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon. Live long and prosper.